Welcome to The Connecting Place with Andrea Fabry, making the connection between health and your environment. Now, here's your host, Andrea Fabry.
Today we're going to talk about creating a sleep sanctuary. What is it? How can you create it? And why is it important? Joining me today is my husband, Chris. Thank you for being here.
As always, very happy to join you, Andrea, on this important topic.
Well, sleep is our body's way of repairing itself on a daily basis. A lot goes on during the sleep process. I think we intuitively know that. A lot of restoring, fixing up, cleaning out. And what we have done in the last, even in the last 10 years is bring in more electronic devices than we've ever had in history, obviously.
You mean we as a culture,
yes.
Not just our family, right?
No. But our family certainly it just all happened so fast.
True.
Everything came in with us into the room, and we're going to consider a concept I first heard about in the field of building biology, and that is the concept of a sleep sanctuary. And in this program, in that concept, we're focusing on electricity and sleep, and how can we get a rest from all of the electronics that are around us on a daily basis. And the good news about this is most of these suggestions are free. And we just simply don't think about them. We just assume that we can have the TV in or on, or our phone by our head, or it's so on and so forth. So there's so many little ways that we can just eliminate this, because the other good news is we don't need any electricity when we sleep. So as overwhelming as it is to change some of our device habits, I think our phones have just overtaken us, our tablets, our computers. The good news is you really can't be reading and sleeping at the same time. The problem is a lot of people will check their phone throughout the night. They might wake up first thing in the morning, wake up in the middle of the night and check it. First thing in the morning, got to check it. We like to go to sleep with our TVs on. So this is some radical thinking, but in the end, could really make a difference in the quality of your sleep.
Let me ask you this. You're not saying that everybody who has insomnia or everybody who has a sleep struggle, it's because of this, or are you?
No, not at all. And sleep is very complicated, and there are all sorts of reasons why we don't sleep. So the goal of creating a sleep sanctuary isn't necessarily to fix my sleep problems. However, a lot of people find that when they don't even realize that this stuff is impacting their quality of sleep. And the way you know that isn't so much of how long you sleep. It's how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel energized, restored? Because sometimes you can sleep 12 hours and feel just as bad as you did when you went to bed. I think a lot of us know that who've struggled with chronic fatigue. So no, this isn't a medical fix, but this is presenting some options, and even for our long-term wellness. You may sleep fine and not think that not feel like there is a problem at all with I can watch a movie on my computer and go right to sleep. It's not a problem. But in the long run, are we doing our bodies a disservice by assaulting them, so to speak, all night and doing some long-term damage that we aren't even aware of? There are a lot of studies that suggest that our high amounts of exposure to electromagnetic radiation, especially at night, are impacting us regarding dementia and cancer and all sorts of chronic illnesses that can come later. So even as a proactive health stance, you can try some of these.
And your point is we don't have to. We don't need it then. So let me, I don't know if you want to start here, but I think this is the place where I see you most passionate, and that is with our kids, with families, with young people who are on the screen until they go to bed. They wake up and they reach for the phone because they got to know, did my friend text me? Did it get back to me? Or they're awakened in the night. Oh, my friend is, saying this. What about parents who are struggling with their children?
You're not alone. And again, it all happens so fast as parents. I wish I could go back 10 years. I would do things so differently. I would take a stronger stand sooner with our kids. It would help them because The recommended reading for this would be the book Glow Kids. It came out in 2016. I highly recommend it. This is his specialty is addiction, but particularly technology and addiction, and it is eye-opening. But not only that, it will validate you as a parent when you say, I just don't think it's good that my child is playing video games till midnight, or I see them staying up late. And you almost feel this powerlessness. Nicholas Kardaras is the author, by the way, Glow Kids. It's available on Amazon, I know.
And it came out in August of 2016, subtitled How Screen Addiction is Hijacking Our Kids and How to Break the Trance.
I even just read how an infant will look at a screen because of the lighting and their eyes don't move. They almost are in a catatonic state. And this is a physiological thing that happens. This isn't our kids' faults. And I don't blame parents because there's no precedence for this. But you can see it. Kids are becoming in a trance. I really like that he used that as a subtitle. But if you're looking for validation to begin to take action on behalf not only of yourself, but your family and your kids, then I recommend that because it will be empowering. It's enlightening, and you're doing your children a favor by drawing boundaries.
Yeah, but it's hard to do, and your kids are going to push you back. And one of the suggestions you have is at night at a specific time, turn the router off. Well, there are going to be some kids who want to stay up later, and maybe they've got homework and they've got to get on their, the thing. And I, if I do this as a parent, I'm going to pay for it because they're going to be upset.
Which shows the nature of the addiction. And they will be. You take their sugary treats away, and what happens? They throw tantrums. This is not their fault. There's a chemical reaction in the brain to sugar and to their devices. There's a shot of dopamine every time they check their text or check an email, and you'll find this out in Glow Kids. So again, you're not going to be popular, but that's what they need. And deep down, who wants to be addicted? That creates so much anxiety. These kids are so anxiety ridden. And so remember that as parents, you're paying the bill, you're providing the shelter, and chances are you've provided the device, and don't apologize for that. Just know that it's fair to draw some lines. Your child does not need 24-hour access to the internet or to his friends or anything. That's not what they need. It's meant for just little bits. A cell phone really is meant, I need to know where you are, call me, or you're out on the road. I understand as parents, you want your kids to be able to reach you. I
wanted to mention a talk show host. Joe Pags is his name. I think he's in New Mexico, in Texas, San Antonio. And his daughter, this came out not too long ago. His daughter was abducted or went with somebody else, and it was a national story. And he, as a parent, was saying then on the air, and he's got this real deep voice, but he was saying, "Look, you're paying the bills. I don't care what your child says to you about freedom of speech and privacy and all this. That's your phone. You have the ability to get on there and look at anything you want because this is your property. It's not their property. When they get old, he was saying this from the perspective of a parent who has had his young teenage child taken away from him. So there's a point of pain in that. But there's a lot of truth to it as well.
Right. And it's important to remember that you're the parent. And it starts with us as parents. We have to set the example. And that is hard and a whole nother topic because we're as addicted as the kids. But the kids' brains are so much more vulnerable. A teen's brain is not fully developed in the prefrontal cortex until 21 or older. These are their developing years, and to have them addicted so soon. And this is why the Sleep Sanctuary is the best place to start, because then you're not nagging all day or trying to change these patterns. You're just saying at night, this is what goes on at our house. And we started this where the internet is shut off. Now we no longer have Wi-Fi in the home. They're all corded, and this further helps, I think, the sense of 24-hour access.
Yes.
Is they're corded, and it's a little harder to get on their devices. So, and that's not why we did it. We did it because the wireless radiation, we're trying to reduce our exposure during the day. Nonetheless, we turn off the internet at 10. Everybody knows that. They're not happy about it, but you see them doing homework or whatever up until or checking whatever they're checking, but at 10 it goes off. And
I heard one daughter say last night, she said, I've only got 25 minutes of internet left, and I need to check this or that or the other. Okay, so she's got it.
Yeah.
She knows the rule. Doesn't necessarily like it. Okay, it's fine.
But very rarely do we have a problem on that now that we've established it. And we had to backtrack. I mean, it was all on all the time. We were oblivious. And if I had something I wanted to work on late, I did. But I found that I go to sleep so much better when that's not an option. And there are, again, physical reasons for this. Exposure to screens tricks the brain into suppressing melatonin. So melatonin rises in the evening and it gets dark, and then it goes low in the morning so that we have the energy to do what we do during the day. That's the rhythm that our body is made for. The screens, the devices, the electronics are disrupting it. And we don't even realize it. And our kids would say, I still can go to sleep right after watching a movie. Over time, though, the body really likes that melatonin to go way up at night so that we get very fatigued early on after the sun goes down. So even artificial light created huge problems when we had that option. Candlelight wasn't doing that. Our lights, all of our fluorescent lighting and so forth, trick the brain into saying, I'm going to stay awake. So in order to begin to change the pattern, my suggestion is to start with that internet early on at whatever time is good in your family. But for you, especially 2 hours before you go to sleep is nice. Obviously, 10 o'clock isn't that.
I think I've come up with an analogy. I think I have a word picture for you. So you tell me if this is right. Keeping the internet on or being exposed to this or checking your email or doing things online later at night is like drinking a full cup of coffee with all the caffeine. For it does kind of the same thing to your brain that caffeine will do to your body.
Yes. I mean, it's very similar. And some people would say, well, I can have coffee at night. And it's true, they can go to sleep. So everybody's different. This is probably I think this is even more universal. Just try cutting back on the electronics at night and see over time. We don't know yet in 30 years what we're going to find with our kids growing up with this exposure day after day, night after night.
So what would you like people to do then? You mentioned turning off the router at night. Is there any other thing for the sleep sanctuary that we can do?
That is the place to start. So even after hearing this, if that's all you do, that's a huge step. It's very important to understand in trying to create a sleep sanctuary. All the steps matter. Any little step is everything matters. So you can't. For me, it's taken about 2 years to over time make these changes in our room. And my kids, I would all I can do is set an example and then teach them and instruct, because they're older. These aren't young kids. They're teens. They're adults, some of them. So the focus has been on our sleep sanctuary, and that I recommend as the first step. Let's just turn off the internet. Let's turn off the router. That would be a great step. But there are lots of other ways to create a deep restorative sleep for your body. And by looking at what phones are in the sleeping area. Now, the cordless decked phones, the ones that have a base, are emitting 24 hours a day. So I didn't realize this. This was when I read that, and we went to a regular corded phone instead of the cordless, because I believed that. To me, that made sense. I had been sleeping right next to our cordless decked phone for a couple years and had more trouble, didn't connect it up, went to a landline. I noticed a difference right away. And I have a video on the blog post that this podcast is linked to, showing the different frequencies, because a meter will show you this. That you can't see this wireless radiation, but it's there, and a meter will show you. So that's what makes this so difficult. But when you get a meter, or you just have someone show you, then it's seeing is believing. But returning to just an old-fashioned corded landline. Now, many people listening are saying, well, I sleep with my cell phone. I don't have a landline anymore, which is sad. It's too bad that that's the way our culture has gone. We just are wireless everything for convenience. But if you do have a possibility of returning to a landline in your community, I highly recommend it. But the good news about having a cell phone is that distance matters. So if you have to have it in the room, 6 feet or more will help. Put it in airplane mode if you need it for an alarm. Okay, put it in airplane mode. A meter will show you there's a huge difference between airplane mode and when it's searching for a network constantly.
But what about emergencies? You know, if people are trying to get a hold of you, you're in airplane mode, you don't get a phone call.
Exactly. So if 6 feet away or more, or you can shield it. I have a little shield over my cell phone if I need it in my room. I have a landline next to me. So there are options. Knowledge is power in this case. So just knowing that these will disrupt, and a lot of kids and a lot of parents, these will disrupt your they're biologically active, these radio frequencies. A lot of kids sleep with their phones, so a lot of parents are saying, I just can't. So at least ask them to move it further away as a step. Or what do you need it for? Or if they're young enough, you're the parent, you say no. Of course, they can behind closed doors. Maybe you have to keep their phone overnight if they're young enough.
What some parents do. Everybody put your phone in the basket here before bed, or at dinner time. We're not going to have this interrupting us, so that might be an idea.
Yes, and be okay with that. That's loving your kids, being you don't have to shame them. This is not their fault. Nobody's at fault here. This is a reality that we wouldn't just put matches and candles and say, go play with these next to your bed. You don't. So this is the same thing. We just haven't known that. So being aware of all the wireless devices around you in the room and eliminating or moving them as far away as possible. Other electronic devices, or let's say appliances like a television. What is a television? It's not really an appliance, an electronic. Let's just say that. Radios, TVs, answering machines, VCRs, lamps, computers, all of it. We don't have any of that in our room. It's a very stark room now for a reason, because we don't need to watch TV. We don't need to. Now we have solar lighting, battery operated is the way to go. Now this is Sleep Sanctuary more advanced.
401.
Yeah, this is further along.
This took a long time too for me to get, because I like my little lamp that's plugged into the wall, and I don't have that anymore.
Go ahead. Go ahead. How did you resolve that?
My prefrontal cortex was really disturbed about it, but I saw what you were trying to do, and it's like, okay, well, this is not going to be that hard for me. I can find a battery operated lamp that I can turn on, turn off, and to do my reading at night, that type of thing. So, we gave up some things, but I saw the difference in, not so much in me. I'm not as cognizant of this, but for you, I could see how this was kind of changing the way you looked at even going to bed at night.
Right. And it definitely, I'm more fatigued faster and I fall asleep faster simply by some of these steps. But again, I go back to turn off the router, get away from the internet. So you don't have to jump to that. But even further, if you really have chronic, deep health issues, this is something to try. May or may not help. But getting the devices, checking your wireless, minimizing the electronics in the room. But you can even go so far as cutting the circuits, just turning off the circuits to the room, because even the wires, even if lamps aren't turned on, the wires emit electric fields, and this is simply the potential of electricity. So if you cut that, then they become completely benign, and it's a very close to nature type, just like camping. When you're camping, a lot of times people say they sleep so well once they get used to being just without everything, they sleep deeper because they're so connected with the electromagnetic fields of the earth. And this is really the point of the Sleep Sanctuary, is how can we get this as close to nature as possible without camping? So cutting off the electricity is one of those ways.
One of the things that you don't list in here on the website where you talk about this is getting rid of the carpet. because the carpet. Can you talk about that?
Electrically, carpeting, well, first of all, carpeting is a magnet for all things toxic. The dust, the particulates, the molds, everything. Carpeting is not the way to go. So that wasn't anything that we could just immediately get rid of. Over time, in the last 2 years, that was something we decided to do. And so now we have tile, and we sleep on a natural latex bed, but I do have some references to go to in terms of safe bedding. Obviously, the more natural the material in a mattress, the better.
And it doesn't mean, see, when people hear you say latex mattress,
that's expensive.
Yeah,
they do.
It's cost prohibitive
Yeah.
for most people. But you don't, I mean, you could sleep on a rock if you, that'd really get you close to the earth, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. What's the simplest, what's within your budget, but what's the most natural choice? Every step matters. It's not about getting this all changed in a day. That's anxiety producing, which is going to be just as disruptive to your brain waves as anything else. Yeah. So it's a journey. It's an adventure. It's just, learning just little bits that our environment, particularly when we sleep, matters.
And it's asking questions too, because that's the hallmark of what you're talking about.
Yes.
And I'm thinking of young parents who may be listening who say, my child is not sleeping as well. You have opinions about baby monitors. How about those with circulation problems and they have an electric blanket that they really, really love? I know you've got a strong feeling about that too.
Well, the science is behind both of those because baby monitors, for the most part now, are wireless. So if you can go back to some of the old-fashioned ones, you can find them on eBay or keep the child closer or whatever adaptations you can make, or you can even shield the baby monitor. But it's not it's not innocent. I mean, there are waves that could potentially disrupt your baby's sleep. So it's something to think about if they are not sleeping well or you have these chronic health issues and you use an electric blanket. For me, it's been invaluable. And so that's just my passion, is to say, okay, yes, ask questions about all of this when you sleep and see what sounds like, yeah, that's worth trying, and then see what you think after. That's as simple as that. And, again, one step at a time, and who knows, you may get a deeper, more restorative sleep.
You've been listening to The Connecting Place, making the connection between health and your environment. Join us again next time for The Connecting Place with Andrea Faber.